In the forgotten town of Eldoria, Calum wandered through empty streets, feeling like a shadow among the people. An orphan with a quiet heart, he stumbled upon an ancient temple hidden from view. Inside, he discovered a glowing gemstone that changed everything. When he touched it, a powerful magic awakened within him, bringing both excitement and fear. As Calum faced this new power, he began to question his place in the world and the choices he would have to make. The streets of Eldoria lay in shadows, overgrown with weeds and forgotten by time. Among the cracked stones and faded signs, Calum walked alone, his heart heavy with the weight of being an orphan. He often felt invisible, like a ghost passing through a world that paid him no mind. The townsfolk hurried past, their faces turned away, lost in their own lives. "Why don't they see me?" he thought as he watched a group of children laugh and play, their joy a stark contrast to his solitude. "Just keep moving," he whispered to himself, trying to ignore the ache in his chest. But today, something pulled at him, a whisper in the wind that urged him to explore the forgotten corners of Eldoria. He wandered down a narrow alley where the sunlight barely pierced through the tangled branches above. As he turned a corner, Calum stumbled upon a structure half buried in vines and moss. It was a temple, ancient and neglected, its walls adorned with symbols that seemed to dance in the dim light. Curiosity sparked within him, mingling with a flicker of fear. "What secrets do you hold?" he murmured, stepping closer to the entrance. The air around the temple felt different, charged with an energy he could not explain. He hesitated, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting someone to stop him. But the street remained silent, the only sound his own heartbeat echoing in his ears. He took a deep breath and pushed the heavy door open, the sound echoing like a thunderclap in the stillness. Inside, dust motes floated lazily in the air, and the scent of old stone enveloped him. His eyes widened as he took in the altar at the center, illuminated by a beam of light that seemed to come from nowhere. On the altar lay a gemstone, shimmering with colors he had never seen before. It pulsed gently, as if alive, and Calum felt an irresistible pull toward it. "What if it's cursed?" he thought, a chill running down his spine. But his curiosity won over his fear. He reached out, his fingers brushing the cool surface of the stone. In an instant, a surge of energy coursed through him, wild and uncontrollable. It was as if the very essence of the temple had awakened, and Calum gasped as visions flooded his mind. Flashes of fire, shadows, and ancient battles danced before his eyes. He staggered back, his heart racing. "What just happened?" he whispered, bewildered. The power throbbed within him, exhilarating, yet terrifying. It felt like being caught in a storm, and he struggled to keep his bearings. "Is this magic? Why me?" Questions swirled in his mind, each one more daunting than the last. As he stood there, caught between awe and dread, a voice echoed in the stillness, low and rumbling like distant thunder. "You have awakened what was long dormant, child," it warned. Calum spun around, searching for the source of the voice, but he was alone. "You must learn to control it, or face the consequences." His breath quickened. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice trembling. But no one answered. The weight of the stone in his hand felt heavier, a reminder of the power he had unleashed. "What if I can't control it?" he thought, a flicker of panic rising within him. The realization settled like a stone in his gut. He was no longer just an invisible boy. He was now a vessel of magic, a force that could change everything. But as the exhilaration surged through him, so did the fear of what he might become. "I need to figure this out," he resolved, clutching the gemstone as if it held the key to his fate. With a final glance at the altar, Calum turned and fled the temple. The streets of Eldoria awaited him, unchanged yet somehow different. The world felt vast and uncharted, filled with possibilities and dangers alike. As he stepped back into the light, he could not shake the feeling that everything was about to change. Would he embrace this power, or would it consume him? The questions lingered in his mind, echoing like the ancient symbols on the temple walls. As days passed after Calem's encounter with the gemstone, he found himself struggling to manage the magic that surged within him. Every time he felt a strong emotion, fear, joy, or anger, waves of energy pulsed through him, sometimes causing small objects to float or flicker with light. He sat in his small room, the walls adorned with faded memories of his life as an orphan. Shaking his head, he whispered to himself, "I must learn to control this. I can't let it take over me." Flashbacks haunted him, each one a reminder of the loneliness he had endured. He remembered the faces of townsfolk who looked away when he passed, the laughter of children that was never meant for him. "Why can't I just fit in?" he muttered, feeling the familiar sting of rejection. The burden of his newfound power felt heavier with these memories. One afternoon, while wandering through the market, Calem caught sight of a girl sitting alone on a bench. Her dark hair was tied in a messy braid, and she gazed at the ground with a look of deep thought. Something about her melancholy drew him closer. As he approached, he noticed the small, worn book resting on her lap. "Hi," he said cautiously. "What are you reading?" She looked up, surprised by his presence. "Oh, it's just a story about a brave knight," she replied, her voice soft, yet filled with a hint of longing. "But it feels far away from my life." Calem sat beside her, intrigued. "I know what you mean. Sometimes it feels like we're just invisible." Her eyes widened and she nodded. "Exactly. I'm Lyra. I don't belong here." "Calem," he introduced himself, feeling an instant connection. "I get it. I've felt that way my whole life." Their shared sense of isolation created a bond between them, a thread of understanding that wove silently through their conversation. As they talked, Calem felt a spark of hope. Maybe he wasn't alone after all. Days turned into weeks, and Calem and Lyra began to meet regularly. They shared stories of their struggles and dreams. One evening, as they sat on a grassy hill overlooking Eldoria, Calem felt a surge of emotion. "I found something recently," he said hesitantly. "Something powerful." Lyra turned to him, curiosity lighting her eyes. "What is it?" "You can trust me." Taking a deep breath, Calem explained the gemstone and the magic it awakened within him. "But it's hard to control. I'm afraid of what might happen if I lose control," he admitted, his voice trembling. Lyra leaned closer, her expression serious. "You have to be careful. Power can change people. It can make you do things you never thought you would." "I know," Calem replied, his heart racing. "But I want to use it for good. I don't know how." Lyra placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "You need to decide how to use it. It's not just about having power. It's about the choices you make with it." Calem nodded, feeling the weight of her words. "You're right. I can't let this magic control me. I have to control it." As they sat together, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over Eldoria. Calem looked into the distance, determination settling in his heart. "I want to help people, Lyra. I want to make a difference." Lyra smiled, her eyes sparkling with hope. "Then let's find a way together. You're not alone in this. We can figure it out." With renewed purpose, Calem felt a flicker of excitement. As time passed, he began to understand that his power could be a tool for change, but it required careful thought and responsibility. The bond he shared with Lyra became a guiding light, helping him navigate the complexities of his new abilities. In the days that followed, Calem spent hours practicing, learning to harness the energy within him. He learned to breathe, to focus, and to channel his emotions. With Lyra by his side, he felt stronger than ever, ready to face the challenges ahead. Their friendship blossomed, a source of strength amid the chaos that swirled within him. Calum realized that the journey ahead would not be easy, and he would face moral dilemmas that would test his heart. Yet, with Lyra's support and the promise of purpose, he felt a glimmer of hope. Together, they would explore the depths of magic, friendship, and the choices that would shape their destinies. As the sun began to set over the crumbling rooftops of Eldoria, the air grew heavy with an unsettling silence. Calum and Lyra stood at the edge of the forgotten temple, their hearts racing as they sensed a presence lurking in the shadows. A chill crept down Calum's spine, and he felt the weight of the gemstone he had touched earlier. It pulsed with energy, almost as if it was alive, and he could not shake the feeling that something was about to happen. Suddenly, a dark figure emerged from the shadows, its form cloaked in a swirling mist. The figure was tall and imposing, with eyes that glowed like embers in the night. Calum and Lyra froze, their breaths hitching in their throats. "Who dares disturb the ancient magic?" The guardian's voice boomed, echoing off the temple walls. It resonated with power, causing the ground beneath them to tremble slightly. Calum's heart raced. We didn't mean any harm," he stammered, stepping slightly in front of Lyra as if to protect her. "I just found this gemstone and—" "Silence!" the guardian interrupted, raising a hand that crackled with energy. "You have awakened forces that should remain dormant. Magic is not a toy for the careless." Lyra's hands trembled as she squeezed Calum's arm for support. "We just wanted to understand," she said, her voice steady despite her fear. "We did not know what we were doing." The guardian's gaze shifted to her, and Calum could feel the weight of its scrutiny. "Understanding comes with responsibility," it said, its tone softer, but no less commanding. "You must learn this lesson quickly, boy. The magic you wield can bring great destruction if misused." Calum felt the guardian's words sink deep into his chest. He glanced at Lyra, who looked equally troubled. "What do we need to do?" he asked, determination flooding his voice. "I want to learn how to control it." The guardian paused, its expression unreadable. "To control magic, one must first understand oneself. You are a vessel of power, Calum, but you must fill that vessel with wisdom, not fear or anger." "What if I fail?" Calum whispered, the doubt creeping back into his heart. "Failure is a part of growth," the guardian replied, its voice echoing with a strange warmth. "But the path you walk is fraught with dangers. You must choose wisely, for every choice you make will shape your destiny." Lyra stepped forward, her eyes fierce. "We will not shy away from this. We want to help Eldoria. We want to do good." The guardian regarded her with a flicker of interest. "Then you must be prepared for the trials ahead. The magic you have awakened is tied to the fate of this land. You are not alone in this, but you must work together." Calum felt a surge of hope at the guardian's words. "Together," he echoed, glancing at Lyra. "We can face whatever comes." "Very well," the guardian said, its form beginning to fade into the shadows. "But remember, power is a double-edged sword. Use it wisely, or face the consequences." With that, it vanished, leaving Calum and Lyra standing in the dim light of the temple, the weight of its warning heavy in the air. "What do we do now?" Lyra asked, her voice trembling slightly. Calum took a deep breath, feeling both fear and determination swirling within him. "We learn," he said firmly. "We learn everything we can about this magic. We cannot let it be a force of destruction. We have to understand it, so we can protect Eldoria." Lyra nodded, her spirit rekindled. "And we'll do it together, right?" "Always," Calum replied, a small smile forming on his lips. They shared a moment of silent understanding, a bond forged in the face of uncertainty. As they left the temple, the last rays of sunlight illuminated their path, casting long shadows behind them. The echoes of the Guardian's warning lingered in their minds, but they felt a flicker of hope igniting within their hearts. They were ready to face the challenges ahead, together. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the crumbling buildings of Eldoria. Calum wandered through the streets, a sense of urgency pulsing in his chest. He had heard whispers from the townsfolk about children who had gone missing. They were trapped in a building that was about to collapse, yet no one seemed to care. His heart raced as he ran toward the scene, his mind racing with thoughts of what he could do. "Calum, wait for me," Lyra called out, sprinting behind him. Her voice was filled with determination, and she caught up with him just as they reached the dilapidated structure. "There are children inside," Calum said, his voice tight. "We have to help them." Lyra's eyes widened with concern. "But what about the Guardian? What if he finds out you used your magic?" "I can't just stand by and do nothing," Calum replied, clenching his fists. "Those children need us." As they approached the building, they could hear faint cries for help from within. The walls groaned ominously and dust fell from the ceiling. Calum took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his decision. He could choose to walk away, to protect himself from the Guardian's wrath, but something deep inside him stirred, a desire to prove that he could be more than just an orphan, more than someone who felt invisible. "Are you ready?" he asked Lyra, his voice steady despite the fear that gripped him. Lyra nodded, her face set with determination. "Together, we can do this." With that, Calum closed his eyes, reaching for the magic inside him. He felt it swirl around him, a warm energy that pulsed with life. He focused on the building, visualizing the children trapped inside. "Let's go!" he shouted, and a burst of light erupted from his hands, illuminating the darkened doorway. They stepped inside, the air thick with dust and despair. The cries grew louder, echoing off the walls. Calum felt a surge of power as he navigated through the debris, Lyra close behind him. "This way!" he urged, leading them toward the sound. Suddenly, a loud crash resonated through the building, sending tremors through the ground. Calum's heart raced. "We have to hurry!" As they turned a corner, they found a group of children huddled together, fear etched on their faces. "Help us!" one of them cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. Calum knelt before them, his heart aching. "It's okay. We're here to help you," he said softly. "Lyra, can you clear a path?" "On it," Lyra replied, her hands glowing with a faint light. She began to move the rubble aside, creating an opening for the children to escape. Calum felt the magic within him swell, and he focused on the children, willing them to feel safe. "You're going to be all right. Just stay close to us," he reassured them. As the last of the rubble fell away, the children rushed toward the exit. Calum turned to follow them, but just as he did, a loud cracking sound filled the air. The ceiling above began to buckle, and dust rained down. "Calum! We need to go!" Lyra shouted, her voice filled with urgency. In that moment, Calum's instincts kicked in. He raised his hands, channeling his magic to hold the ceiling up. "Go! I'll catch up!" he yelled, his heart pounding as he fought against the weight of the collapsing structure. "No! I won't leave you!" Lyra cried, her eyes wide with fear. "You have to! They need you!" Calum replied, feeling the strain of his magic intensifying. "Just go!" With tears in her eyes, Lyra turned and ushered the children outside. Calum could feel the pressure building, the walls threatening to cave in. But as the last child slipped past Lyra, she hesitated, glancing back at him. "Calum, please," she pleaded. In that moment, a rush of warmth filled Calum's heart. He realized he was not alone. He had Lyra, and together they could overcome anything. "I'll be right behind you. Trust me," he shouted. Finally, with a final push of magic, Calum closed his eyes and concentrated. A protective barrier enveloped him, shielding him from the falling debris. The last thing he heard before everything went dark was Lyra's voice, filled with determination and fear. "I believe in you, Calum." As the dust settled, Calum felt the warmth of kindness wrap around him like a blanket. He was needed. In that moment of heroism, he understood the true power of connection and the choices that came from the heart. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the ancient ruins of Eldoria, Calum sat on the steps of the forgotten temple. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers, but his mind was far from peaceful. He clutched the shimmering gemstone tightly in his hand, its glow pulsing softly as if it had a heartbeat of its own. "Why does this feel so heavy?" he murmured to himself, staring at the ground. The weight of his recent discovery pressed down on him like a stone. Suddenly, Lyra appeared beside him, her presence a comforting light in the dimness. "Calum, are you all right?" she asked, concern lacing her voice. She had become his anchor in this whirlwind of emotions, and he was grateful for her company. I found out something about my past," Calum confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. He hesitated, his heart racing as he thought about the implications of his lineage. "I'm connected to the ancient guardian. I'm one of his descendants." Lyra's eyes widened, reflecting the fading light. "What? That's incredible. But how do you feel about it?" Calum let out a shaky breath. "I feel scared. What if I'm not worthy? What if I can't live up to what's expected of me?" His hands trembled as he spoke, and he felt the gemstone's warmth against his palm. Lyra moved closer, resting a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You are worthy, Calum. You have already shown courage and kindness by saving those children. This is just another part of your journey." He looked into her eyes, searching for the strength he needed. "But what if I fail? What if the power I have does more harm than good?" You won't know unless you try," she said firmly. "Remember, magic is not just for destruction. It can heal too. You have to believe in yourself." Her words sparked a flicker of hope within him. "You really think so?" Calum asked, uncertainty still lingering in his voice. "I know so," she replied with a smile. "Let's find out together. We need to learn more about this magic and your family. Maybe it can help us understand what we're meant to do." Encouraged by her belief in him, Calum nodded slowly. "All right, let's explore Eldoria's history. Maybe there are clues about my lineage." The two friends began to search through the temple's dusty corners, uncovering old scrolls and faded maps. As they worked, Calum felt a growing connection to the past, like threads weaving him into a rich tapestry of history. "Look at this," Lyra exclaimed, holding up a scroll covered in elaborate symbols. "These writings talk about the guardians and their role in protecting Eldoria. It says that each guardian has a chosen heir." Calum leaned closer, his heart pounding with excitement. "Do you think that could be me?" "Of course," Lyra said, her enthusiasm infectious. "It makes sense. You have the magic, and you've shown that you can use it for good. This is your destiny." As they continued to read, Calum's fear began to fade, replaced by a sense of purpose. "If I'm meant to carry this legacy, I want to do it right. I want to help Eldoria." Lyra smiled brightly, her eyes shining. "And you will. We will make sure of it." Just then, a soft breeze swept through the temple, causing the scrolls to flutter like leaves. Calum felt a surge of energy, as if the spirits of his ancestors were encouraging him. "Thank you," he whispered to the air, his heart swelling with gratitude. "I will honor your legacy." As night fell, Calum and Lyra stood together, looking out over the ruins of Eldoria. The weight of his lineage no longer felt like a burden, but a call to action. With Lyra by his side, he was ready to embrace his destiny and discover the true power of the magic that flowed through him. "Together, we'll uncover the truth," Lyra said softly, her voice filled with determination. Calum nodded, feeling a newfound strength within him. The journey ahead would not be easy, but he was no longer alone. With each step, they would weave their own story into the ancient fabric of Eldoria. The air crackled with tension as Calum stood at the edge of the clearing, facing the ancient guardian. The guardian, a towering figure cloaked in shadows, radiated power that made the ground tremble beneath Calum's feet. Lyra stood beside him, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and determination. "Calum, you can do this," she whispered, her voice steadying him. "Remember who you are." He nodded slowly, recalling the journey that had brought him to this moment. The gemstone, the magic, the discovery of his lineage. It all led to this confrontation, where the fate of Eldoria hung in the balance. "Why have you come here, child of the bloodline?" The guardian's voice boomed, echoing through the trees. "You have awakened powers that could destroy everything." Calum took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of Lyra's presence beside him. "I did not seek this power," he replied, his voice firm. "I only wanted to protect those who cannot protect themselves." The guardian's eyes narrowed, glowing with an otherworldly light. "Protection is a heavy burden. Are you ready to bear it?" "I am," Calum said, conviction filling his heart. "But I refuse to let fear guide my actions. I have learned that love and compassion can be stronger than anger." Lyra stepped forward, her gaze unwavering. "We have seen the darkness in this world, but we have also discovered the light. Together, we can create a future where magic heals instead of harms." The guardian paused, the flicker of doubt crossing its face. "You speak of love, yet you stand before me ready to fight. Are you truly prepared to face the consequences of your choices?" Calum felt the surge of magic within him, the energy swirling like a tempest. "I am prepared to fight for what is right. I will not let fear dictate my decisions any longer." With that, the guardian unleashed a powerful wave of magic, dark tendrils reaching out like claws. Calum felt the weight of the energy pressing against him, but he stood firm, channeling his own magic. The air around him shimmered as he focused on the love he had found, not just for himself, but for Lyra, and for the people of Eldoria. "Calum!" Lyra shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. "Show him your true strength." With a surge of determination, Calum reached out his hands. "I will not fight you with hatred. I will embrace the light within me," he declared. As he spoke, a brilliant light emanated from his core, pushing back the darkness. The guardian faltered, surprise flickering in its glowing eyes. "You choose compassion over conflict?" "Yes," Calum cried, feeling the power of connection surge through him. "I believe we can work together. I believe we can find balance." As the light enveloped the clearing, the guardian hesitated, its expression shifting from hostility to contemplation. "You possess a rare strength, child, one that can change the course of Eldoria." "Let us change it together," Calum urged, his heart racing. "We can unite our powers, protect our home, and guide others to understand magic as a force for good." Slowly, the guardian lowered its arms, the dark tendrils receding. "You have shown me a truth I have forgotten. Perhaps there is hope for this world yet." In that moment, a connection sparked between them, a bridge formed by empathy and understanding. Calum felt a wave of energy pass between them, signaling a new alliance. The guardian nodded, acceptance shining in its eyes. "Then let us forge a new path for Eldoria." With a deep breath, Calum smiled, relief washing over him. "Together, we can heal the wounds of the past. Together, we can be the guardians of this magic." As the fight transformed into understanding, the air shimmered with a new energy, one that held the promise of hope and a brighter future. The guardian and Calum stood united, ready to reclaim the magic of Eldoria, not as enemies, but as allies. In that moment of truth, Calum knew he had not only fought for his own acceptance, but had also embraced the power of love and connection that would shape the kingdom's destiny. Share this story if you believe that love can conquer even the toughest challenges. Leave a comment about a moment when unexpected support changed your life, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales like this one.